The Committee of the Whole is back from recess. We are on Bill number 246-36 in the first round of questions. Speaker Terlahi, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the panel members. I appreciate all the work that you have put into this plan and all of its parts, and you're being here today to help us, guide us through. So the statute says, once this is transmitted to the legislature, we have to either adopt it, amend it, or reject it. And I am a little concerned, so I want you to help us. So right now, the bill says the following are approved: the Hagåtña Master Plan, the Hagåtña Master Plan Design Guidelines, and the Hagåtña Master Plan Map Atlas. And we're all aware this is over 100 pages of documents. There's so many things in here. I'm worried, frankly, myself, that maybe we're not able to catch as a legislature and to really know exactly the impacts of passage, right? And I'm very worried about this because I'm a little worried about whether all the Hagåtña landowners are really aware that this is what's going on today. That after today, if we adopt these plans, or when we vote on it, that they are now subject to this. And are we really aware, all the agencies, of the impacts of these types of changes throughout the rest of the government? For example, the Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Authority has been given huge powers under the statute, maybe one of the strongest entities in the government of Guam, very independent, able to, granted the power of eminent domain, which is land takings, if it sees fit, granted the power to take, as you talked about earlier, taxes on the improvements on properties in Hagåtña, to take those taxes and use it as you see fit. None of that requires legislative authority like every other agency requires. None of that requires, any of the other safeguards that we have in place for any of the other authorities. And so I just want to make sure when we approve these plans, if we are also giving over additional authorities. And so we talked about this a little bit at the public hearing and a little bit this morning as well. And I think there's been conflicting answers. For example, this will be a master plan. And we currently have master plans in place like that the Northern, actually, I don't know if I got the title correct, Mr. Borja, but it's like the Northern Master Plan, right? The Central, we're supposed to be working on a Southern Master Plan. And these plans have very practical effects. When you go up before the Land Use Commission, they're going to tell you whether your proposed use of that property is consistent with the land use plan or not. And that gets to be a factor on their determinations. It gets to be a factor in all the agencies' reviews, right? Their statistics and plans. That's their big thing, is that we conform to these plans as much as possible. And they advocate for that. And so at the public hearing, we're told today that the same process that's always been in place is going to be in place. But I don't think that's accurate. At the public hearing, there was one answer that said, no, in place of the Guam Land Use Commission, it is going to be the Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Authority that actually makes these determinations. And in place of the Central Land Use Plan, for example, it's going to be this Hagåtña Master Plan now that you are, your development is guided by, right? So right or wrong, I mean, that's a whole other story, but I just want to make very clear that those are the implications of what's going on here. It's not as simple, it's not nothing, that's for sure. And So if you go through the hundreds of pages of documents, you'll see they have planned uses for different areas of Hagatna. My concern is that whether everybody really knows about that and agrees with it, and I know you've had public hearings with Matrix, but I also want to know, I don't know, I'm still concerned, like another of my colleagues, which comes first? Do we deal with the flooding, or do we decide this is the Hagatna River Walk, whether it's going to flood or not, whether we can mitigate it or not, or whatever? Oh, my time is already up, Ayade. But, so I wanted to know, I still am not convinced that we should not address the flooding first, or give us a plan on the flooding so that we can say these other uses are consistent with that or not consistent with that. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I would ask if they could address those regardless of my time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm just going to try and remember each one of your questions and address. The first one, I believe, was are the landowners of Hagatna aware of the situation and what's going on? And I just want to say that the Hagatna Restoration and Redevelopment Authority is in full compliance with the open government law. We have done all of our hearings, held all of our meetings in public. We've held numerous charrettes. We follow the same procedure that this body of legislature follows, when you pass laws. We've engaged with all of the agencies, not once, not twice, but multiple times, because this plan started off in the previous administration. And the governor, when we came in, asked us to reach again out to all those agencies and make sure that we had their sign-off. As far as following the law and trying to inform the public, we are in full compliance. Your other question was government and government part. Do you want to? The flood issue. Not completing the Hagatna River flood and mitigation feasibility study does not deter construction. As you can see, this building was built without the plan. The Guam Museum was built without that plan being completed. We have the first community bank, which is over here in the flood zone. Is that the first community bank? I think the one next to the library? Community First is being constructed. The Guam Chamber of Commerce was constructed. Having the plan completed, or the river feasibility study completed, it will assist us in, and it will also change certain aspects of requirements in construction and insurance. And that's one of the main reasons why we're still moving forward with that, but it does not hinder construction. The land resources building that we're trying to move forward with is not in the flood zone, so we can move forward with that.
Can you specify the changes to the flood insurance requirements that you said? That there would be changes made. Adoption of this plan would result in changes to the flood
Senator,
requirement.
just to clarify, when a building is being proposed to be built, it has to meet the requirement of whatever the master plan or the zone says it's going to be in. And once it meets that requirement, then you look at the hazards that it may have, and part of that is, of course, is it in a flood area of particular concern? Because the most of Hagatna is in a flood area of particular concern, and there's already a map that's a firm map. It's called a flood insurance rate map that determines how high you have to build in order to meet the requirement. Then from there you have, when you submit your construction plans into the Department of Public Works, you have to get a certification that you meet the flood elevation requirement as set forth in the firm map. And the engineer from whatever company's going to build that structure um, um, submits an application, and then it's approved by DPW in order for you that your building meets that requirement, and then you can start building in accordance with whatever. My point I'm trying to bring up is that the document, this is a planning document. It just sets a vision of how you want your city or your town or your neighborhood to look like, your community to look like. The regulatory aspect has not changed. When an individual comes in to do construction or whatever, they still have to get insurance, they still have to do this. Now, in order to mitigate that, you have to build things that will remove the flood area of particular concern. And this is where we've been working with the Army Corps of Engineers to try to do that. It started first in 1976 when they actually did a study to determine that. In 1985, there was a plan to actually build, but they required the government of Guam to first do these bridges, meet the requirement of the 100-year flood with these bridges. So Department of Public Works or the government of Guam went in to try to do it. And it just kept on, we kept on trying to meet the requirements of the Army Corps of Engineers, and they keep on holding us back. They're saying, oh, you need to provide this. Congress Berdalu, Congressman Wampat originally had given us an authorization approval for the 1985 plan to be built, to be funded at $25 million. And then it was being deauthorized, and Congress Berdalu came in and got it reauthorized back in. But because the Army Corps of Engineers came back and said, your 100-year flood projection, because your bridges are updated, the plan that was originally approved back in 1985 doesn't meet the same requirement for the original plan that was approved for the $25 million. So this is why we're back again, trying to get the study done, a restudy, to do the requirements, but it does not restrict anyone from coming in and developing. It just costs a little bit more because you have to build higher than what the requirements are. You have to meet the materials in order to meet the flood requirements. There are other things that you need to do in order to mitigate the flood requirement, but it doesn't restrict development. So when the plan is passed, an individual can come in and build whatever development they want to build in accordance with what the plan says, but they just have to meet the regulatory requirement of what the firm map says or what FEMA says you have to do. I hope that answers your question, Senator or Speaker.
Yeah, unfortunately, my time is up, so.
Yes, you can follow up round for the second round. Senator Nelson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How much did this plan cost to create?
I believe the plan was a little over $900,000. $900,000.
And is there going to be a continuing contract for the company that created this plan?
No, the task order was completed with Matrix, so we own the document now. We can make all the changes that we have the working document, so all the changes can be made in-house.
Okay, I was just curious because we had also a Matrix representative here. So I was just wondering, since the plan is complete, right, and it was paid for, is there going to be another contract out to make any adjustments to the plan, or how is that going to go when you move forward?
Madam Chair, can I do a point of information?
Please
on
state your
this-
point of
on this issue?
information.
Just
Speaker.
based on the invitation to making sure that all the necessary parties were here, an invitation was extended as part of them, Matrix during the master plan, that they would be included in the invitation because I said all necessary parties that had it handed in, inclusive of all the ex-official members, would be extended an invitation, and that's why Matrix is on.
So
To
just
answer
nothing.
any question, yield it their way.
So they're trying to get into Zoom?
She's there.
She's there? Oh, okay.
I'm here. Thank you.
Pardon?
I'm here, Celeste.
Yeah.
The
So,
Matrix.
yes. So back to my question. Is there an answer for the question?
Can you repeat the question?
You stated earlier that Matrix was contracted to create the plan, right? And the plan is complete. Now that, if this bill does pass, who continues the changes that will need to be made in the plan? Because we know that there's always going to be a change to that plan.
The changes will be made by the planner's position in Hagatna Restoration. We own the product now. The task order with Matrix to develop the plan was completed, and all changes will be in-house with the government of Guam.
Okay, because earlier they did mention, it was mentioned in this panel that Matrix is going to do the flooding, the flood zone change or plan. So it was Matrix, I believe it was in 2018, did give us a proposal to do the Hagatna River flood mitigation study. The governor decided to go with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We're currently, she terminated that agreement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Currently, the HRA, we're seeking a grant to complete the study, and that's where we're at right now. Okay, and then if you would need to hire another firm, how would you go about that? Would you just continue utilizing Matrix, or how would you go forward with needing to make changes? Because I know that it requires subject matter expertise. I don't know if HRA has this kind of in-depth of subject matter expertise in regards to the plan, right, within your agency.
Are we speaking specifically about the river feasibility study, Senator?
The master plan that you have?
Or the projects within the
Yes,
master plan?
correct.
Oh, okay, so the portfolio of the projects that's completely separate than this. So each of those projects would be approached separately, depending again on funding, priority, administrations will change, and we'll go through the normal vetting process, the normal procurement process with each of those projects, where there's RFPs sent out. It's not a sole source.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure, because we're hearing some talk in the government that there's some other agency that's, I don't know if it's the same country, but company, but it's the same name, was given a contract without proper bidding. So I just wanted to inquire about that. I'd like to yield the rest of my time to the speaker. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Nelson. Senator Duenas, you are recognized.
Madam Chair, and I want to thank the entire panel as well for the work that they've put in. But I have to say I do share the concerns that the speaker has mentioned. I want to use an example here in a moment, but prior to doing that, I think also, Ms. Casillo, you kind of made our point in terms of the ability to do things, and I want to switch over to land management and Mr. Borja. Earlier it was discussed the issue of the land building that was conceptualized, and I believe the plan was complete in 2010 under the Camacho administration, and I believe Joe Santos was part of that as well, or land management technical staff. I wanted to see, because it was discussed as part of the master plan, yet that was a standalone plan that was created on a property adjacent to Hulali, as was mentioned earlier, kind of sandwiched in between I guess we call it the pizza place to refer to the building. But I want to make an example of this. What is land management and the land agency's current position on the construction of that building, of which the plan has already been completed?
Senator, I'm glad you asked the question. The plan was signed off by yourself in 2010. However, prior to that, in 2009, there were 3 sets of human remains found on the property, and that kind of put a stop to that project, as well as the financing aspects on that. We still own a building, and it's kind of strange in that building because of the property, The property is actually titled to the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. However, in the law, the construction of the building there, it's called the Land Management Building. That's actually the name of the fund on there. So what put a stop to that was, number one, the financing. My understanding, I wasn't in government at that time, but my understanding is that the financing couldn't be put together and the discovery of those 3 sets of human remains on the property.
So then that, even if we were to move forward now, the regulatory agencies would have to come back together to basically align everything to be able to clear everything for construction to move forward, which exclusive from this master plan could still take place.
Yes, I would believe so.
My second point, I guess I'm going to go to, maybe I'll try this with you, Ms. Leon Guerrero. Do you have an example at this point of whether Stats and Plans or any other agency that would be assisting with acquisition of federal grants or other financial possibilities that currently would it be enhanced in terms of any proposed project based on the master plan having been completed?
There hasn't actually been an ask, but one of BSP's mission is to provide technical supports to the government of Guam agencies so that they meet their missions. So should there be an ask to assist in putting together an application package, then we will provide support in that area.
So outside of a master plan, do you still do that with regard to any proposals that agencies would come forward to ask your assistance to support grant application?
Yeah, so for example, we did provide support to Department of Land Management to enhance their information technology, and it's basically, we just assisted them in putting the package together, but actually Land Management submitted the application. And we also provided support to DPW as well on packaging an application, and it was actually submitted under the Guam State Clearinghouse.
Madam Chair, I'm going to try this because I think this cuts to the chase of the voluminousness of this document and see if we can have an exchange real quick. If we just go in the plan and go to 3.2 goals and policies, the statement is land use forms for the underlying basis of for all community functions concerns the productivity of land as well as the overall benefits drawn from it. Therefore, ensuring that uses are compatible with nearby existing future land uses is important. Land use goals and policies envision opportunities to revive Hagatna as the capital city of Guam core destination. They establish importance of developing dense urban structures which support a variety of uses, creating live, work, play environments. On another example, so I just wanted to see if I can go to Lacia for this. Under what is stated as goals like LU1, LU2, and other statements, there are several statements in here that I think kind of draw the attention. Like on mixed uses, it says, the city shall carry out and support actions which lead to the transition, improvement, creation, and where necessary, removal of land uses where such actions under further objectives of the communities adopt master plan. Who is the city that's proposed here in this statement under policy LU 1.1?
The capital city of Hagatna.
So when it references the city, is that your entity? Or is that everybody's going to get together and make this decision under LU 1.1, the whole city? And I bring that up, Madam Chair, because there are multiple references to the city. And that's why I think the speaker was asking the question of what is being empowered here in terms of the Hagatna Restoration Revitalization Authority, because that term authority we all know in government is very, very strong. And so there's so many terms in here that envision the city, the city, the city. So I'm trying to figure out, like the speaker was asking, how, and yes, you follow the open government law, there's been discussions, Matrix says, done multi-agency outreaches and landowners as well, but I can tell you if I leave out this door right now and probably go knock on 4 doors in Agana, you're gonna have a lot of different thought processes on landowners and what they think. So I just need to at least get down to that core. What is the city reference here in these multiple exercises?
Senator, this is Celeste Warner. I'd like to assist here if I can, please.
Sure, that would be nice.
Okay, sounds good. The city in all of these goals and policies is the authority, is HRRA.
And that's,
In short.
and that, Celeste, I know so while I'm with you, then maybe I'll ask you a follow-up. I know in 2015, this plan had an initial unofficial rollout, and I think that was with Joe Kanata, Hagatna Restoration. From that 2015 rollout, soft rollout, if you will, can you enumerate any major changes from 2015 till now, work that Matrix did in this presentation, which actually has a reference to Matrix in the title and in the presentation?
It has are you saying our name is in the report? But I can tell you this, that a master plan is truly, it takes into consideration, it's a master in the sense that it takes all the different plans of all the different agencies. So for the Guam Preservation Trust plan, we worked very closely with them. We incorporated their plan and worked with all of the different stakeholders of the community and the elected and appointed officials and technical staff and the leaders of the government of Guam and the autonomous agencies as well. As far as what has changed specifically to the government complex and to the Plaza de España, very, very little, but we did incorporate some changes in regards to ingress and egress and transportation circulation to make sure that there is a good flow. We brought in our traffic engineers to assist there and to bring in transit as well.
Thank you, Celeste. And yeah, I reference this because under Hagatna Master Plan, the reference is there a matrix. And this is proposed by Matrix. So that's why I wanted to say that your name is in the title of this document as transcribed.
Oh, prepared by, yes, sir, thank you.
Yes. So I know my time is up, but I think you get the gist of where this is going. I'll follow up on the next round.
Sidis Masi, Senator Dueñas. Senator Ada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Probably perhaps for the Director Casil. Earlier you were mentioning that those landowners or businesses that are currently in the area would not be expected to move or that they'll be grandfathered in. Would they be required to come up to the master plans of how you guys are developing? So if they're going to improve on their projects or on their properties, would they have to go through HRRA to get approval prior to developing or improving properties within the Hagatna area?
Okay, I'm trying to understand you. So are you asking if it's their property is currently not developed, would they have to follow the master plan? Or if they're currently developed and it's not in compliance with the master plan?
So both situations would actually be good if they're not developed, and also perhaps those, like the body shops that are in the area.
To answer the first question, any business that is not in compliance with the master plan could continue to exist as they are. However, if they sell the property or pass it on, then we would ask that there be compliance in the new use moving forward. Any landowner that hasn't developed their plan, once this plan becomes effective, they would be required to comply with the plan.
So on the first part, you said they would be asked to, would they be, I mean, if the current owner sold it, would they be asked or would they be required? Because on the second part, you said that if they're going to develop, they would be required. So if the new owner came in, would they be required to?
They would be required.
So it's not an ask, it's a requirement now.
Yeah, when the non-conforming use, if a vendor that's operating a non-conforming use sells the property or sells the asset to another new owner and still continues on with that non-conforming use, then that non-conforming use still exists. Now, if the new owner decides that they want to change it to something more that's not in compliance or doesn't meet the new master plan requirement, then they have to comply with the master plan there. So that, again, if they're non-conforming, now if a use is conforming, it's authorized to be there because it was originally a commercial zone, but now it's more towards mixed-use residential, but doesn't meet the requirement of a resident as a residential compatible, then the HRA will work with the landowner to help the landowner select a use that's more compatible with what the master plan calls for in terms of the use, because we want, again, you want compatible uses within the neighborhood, not incompatible uses. And so that's what would happen in terms of the owner.
Okay, I see. So then my other question is, would HRRA be one of those steps where you'd have to clear in order to get a building permit? So would they have to give their approval in order for a developer or someone else?
There are two processes. First is you're going to meet with HRA, if HRA is still in existence, to discuss the different development options that are available to that landowner. If the landowner decides he wants to go and actually construct, and it's within the requirements, of course, of the master plan, then they just go straight up to the Department of Public Works and get a building permit, because they're going to be cleared by HRA or it's whoever it's going to become. They're going to be cleared by them to go ahead and proceed with go ahead and to build that development that they want to build. So they'll go into the regulatory part of it, which is the permitting process.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the question I wanted, whether they had to go through a clearance first with HRA prior to, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Madam Chair, I'd like to yield the remaining of my time to a speaker.
Sedus Masi, Senator Ada. Senator Brown, you are recognized.
Thank you. I think the challenge with this issue, and certainly I was there in the 24th Guam Legislature when we approved the Hagåtña Master Plan, but I think as people become aware of the implications of what it means, there's a positive side. I mean, we go to many other locations where there is an organized development, and it's actually part of essentially the identity that these cities have. Many in the mainland that we go to. I mean, you go to San Antonio, we've been on the Riverwalk. The identity and experience that comes with that is collective, and what surrounds that activity for visitors and for residents is fairly consistent with a certain theme that's promoted. And I understand the desire to do that here. I mean, some remnants are here from the war, thank goodness, that have survived, but so few. And I know we very much want to promote our own culture, our own identity, not just as a tourist destination, but as our home for us also that live here. So I understand the value and importance of this. I concur with some of my colleagues that mentioned it would have been far more beneficial if we had had the roundtable meeting prior to this bill being put on the floor, because I fear that because there may be still questions that we may have with regards to this, that we're not tripping over ourselves to approve this plan at this time. There's a lot of components involved in it. A lot of it's very good. I'm very supportive of a lot of the provisions that are placed forth in here, but it's also going to raise questions. And when landowners here realize the implications of what's involved, then there's the challenge. I wanted to ask, if we move forward with this, how is Hagåtña, Rita, how are you, Lastia, your division, how are you guys going to address monitoring and enforcement? I mean, I know you have very limited resources already just to even get us to this point of where you're at now. How do you look at, or how does your entity look at addressing compliance? I mean, you know, is it DPW, or you have to go to land management? I mean, how are you guys collectively, through your office, going to facilitate compliance with this plan?
Well, thank you, Senator. The HRA does not want to recreate the wheel. You know, we have all these agencies that we plan to enter MOUs with that will specifically outline what our responsibilities are and duties, working with Department of Public Works, working with Department of Land Management, with GWA, with the GWA and GPA, and that's how we intend to move forward. You know, we're not trying to recreate the wheel. We've already have the set of agencies, you know, that are already there, that the process is already in place.
I guess I bring it up because, I mean, all of your agencies that you're referring to are already challenged to address compliance with existing laws on the books, certainly DPW, land management. I mean, the list will go on. The complaints of our residents will go on. I just want to know what's the real mechanism to do that. I mean, you can enter into these agreements, but the ability to comply, existing laws right now, existing zoning laws, we don't have to go very far to see non-compliance and the inability of the government itself through these agencies to properly address correction or enforcement. That's why I'm asking. I mean, what's the mechanism going to be there? And there will be resistance. I'm sure, even though I know a number of landowners in this area and business people that were interviewed in the process of developing the plan. When the reality, like I said, when the reality sits in to meet these requirements and the additional cost, and perhaps what their vision is of their business or whatever it is they want and what the master plan requires to be put in place, or like I said, even in the sale of the property. You know, there's going to be challenges with that. So I'm just, again, wanting to ask, what will be ultimately really that mechanism for the authority itself to monitor and then again follow through with compliance?
I understand the concern, Senator, but when you look at the land use plan that we're proposing, we're actually looking to expand the types of uses, not restrict the type of uses.
Yes, but they're intended to fit a certain expectation. So I look at it a little differently. I think there's a set, the master plan is proposing a certain projection of Hagåtña, of what we desire to have it look like, what we desire to have it operate. So while you may say that it's opening up, I look at it a little differently. Right now they can pretty much do what they want as long as it's within, you know, getting a building permit or meeting a zoning requirement. But the actual construct and the facade of these buildings and how they're going to be designed and even the limitations we're placing on a landowner who's going to, for example, they want to sell their property to another interested party. If they're not in compliance, then the new landowner will be expected to meet these requirements. So, I mean, it's just human nature. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not supportive of the plan. Like I said, I was here when we voted for this the first time around. Mm-hmm. But I just want to know, how are we going to address that and what's the mechanism? Because I already see the limitations of government now just to enforce existing mandates that are on the books already.
So one of the components that we're looking at as part of the master plan is the governance. How do we execute it? Right now, since we've completed the plan, the Hagåtña Restoration Redevelop Authority, we've created a subcommittee to look at how we are going to execute and enforce the governing part of this plan. We meet monthly, and that we have two subcommittees. We're looking at the implementation part of the plan, so the different projects. We also meet monthly, and we expect to have a report and recommendations out by the third quarter of this year. So I will have a better, a full report to you on that at that time. At this time,
I don't have a lot of time left this round. It must have flew by so quickly. Yeah. I'll wait for the next round. I have another question with regard to infrastructure, but I will wait till the next round. Thank you so much, Ms.
Can I
Castillo,
add
for
on to
response.
your
Sure,
comment?
yes, you guys have no time limit.
Oh, you have a time
This
limit?
is the most
we don't.
time-limited legislature I've ever been in.
Okay, cool.
This is
Yeah, I
Celeste.
wanted
I'd like
to, if you look at Public Law 24-110, which created the Haggadah Restoration and Redevelopment Authority, it sets out it actually says that these are processes that you need to have before you can proceed. Part of that is making sure you have the master plan, and within the master plan, you have those supporting documents. The two supporting documents are the design guidelines and the map atlas. So that we're currently having that here. Now, the part that requires enforcement or code enforcement in terms of it is the zoning aspect of the zoning ordinance. The actual law says that the board shall come up with a zoning code or a zoning ordinance that will complement the master plan and the design guidelines and be able to enforce it. And so this is where, once the plan is passed, then the board goes in and says, okay, we're going to now take a zoning ordinance and take that zoning ordinance and make sure it meets the requirements of the new zoning or the new master plan. And so this process is, once we get over the hump of approving the plan, then we go into the part where the law requires that the board now approves a zoning ordinance.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Joe. I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Senator Brown. We are now in the second round of questions. For the panel, we'll begin with Senator Perez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. So I guess part of my reservations are with the enabling statute more so than the plan itself, because like previous speakers have stated, that there's a lot of power given to the HRRA board. And so there's some amendments that I would like to proffer, I guess, in the third round of this committee of the whole. And it basically addresses some of the questions that I had earlier in the first round. And so the idea of reevaluating the plan on a regular basis. So I just want to be able to put it in writing, basically, that it was discussed earlier that 5 years was going to be, I guess, the plan to reevaluate it. And so I was also thinking that perhaps should there be significant, should there be new and emerging information that can pose significant impacts to the plan. So this is something that I would like to amend, if maybe if I can get your feedback. So this is one of the amendments. HRRA shall reevaluate the plan every 5 years or sooner if new and emerging information has been produced that poses significant impacts as determined by Bureau of Statistics and Plans with a regulatory network to the approved master plan. HRRA shall report annually to Y Legislature and Guam of the status of the master plan. So if I can get feedback from this potential amendment, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Senator. I think that's a great amendment. I don't see any issues with, if there are major things happening in our community that are going to impact development or land or the environment, we should be able to incorporate those. And I believe that the 5 years was a minimum of every 5 years. I just wanted to put that out there. So it could happen earlier if the board, comes together, convenes, and votes to incorporate it.
Okay, thank you.
Senator,
Appreciate that feedback.
This is Celeste Warner. I'd like to just add to that. Usually, those are great comments, and it is good to put it in the policy document as well as the regulatory document, which would be the zoning ordinance. Usually in the zoning ordinance, it's stated as a major amendment and a minor amendment that can happen anytime throughout the year, in between the time that you approve, and the update, and the next update, and the next update. So what you're stating is a standard, traditional, common, practice. So I think it's a great idea. Just wanted to add that.
Sorry, can you repeat that? So you were saying it should also be placed, if I heard that correctly, in other areas of the document? If you can restate what you just said?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'd be happy to restate it. I stated that it's at a minimum, it is in the zoning ordinance as identified as a major amendment and a minor amendment. And a major amendment and a minor amendment is it is always defined, stating that the plan can be updated at any time, meeting those requirements, in the instance of anything that could be happening economically, global, market trends and such. So it gives you that flexibility in between the time it's approved and the 5-year update, the comprehensive 5-year update. And I was just stating that even though that's a normal standard piece of language that goes in the zoning ordinance, that it's also it's also common to put it in the policy document, i.e. the master plan that we have here. So I think it's a great idea.
All right, thank you. So the other amendment would be to place Commission as one of the agencies to be, I guess, consulted with. So in 1.3 of the document, agencies influencing the planning in Agatnia. So I think earlier it was stated that Commission is one of those that you look to. So we just wanted to put that in writing into the plan. So it's 1.3, and we just added language to include Commission. If there's any feedback on that.
Yes, I believe that the Commission Fino Chamorro, they're a very, very important organization here in Guam. They help guide us in protecting and preserving our culture, and that's part of our mission. And I don't see any issues with adding them as one of the other government of Guam agencies influencing Hagatnya.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. So another
I think the reason why they weren't included was because they're already on our ex officio. So these are the ones that are listed here were not ex officio members. They were just the agencies. That's why they weren't included.
But you're saying it's okay to put it
No,
in
but
writing?
yes, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, appreciate that. And so another amendment that I would like to proffer is the what we discussed earlier this morning about the zoning laws, right? So HRRA is given pretty strong powers, which includes creating their own zoning procedures. And so I would like to just also put in writing that the zoning laws as it exists today will be followed pending, I guess, the development of HRRA's own zoning laws, I suppose. Is that something?
Senator, within the master plan, there's already a policy that allows HRA to set up intergovernmental agreements to allow these type of things to occur. The current zoning code, as you see it, is Euclidean. It's very restrictive, and so it doesn't allow the activities that the master plan will allow within Hagatnya. And so if you allow that to happen, you're actually restricting now the development of any landowner that wants to come in and redevelop their property, because then the zoning, an example is the zoning code says that if it's commercial use, the maximum you can go is 7 stories or 6 stories, but the master plan allows you to go beyond that, and so we're restricting the developer or the landowner in terms of developing their assets. There was actually a draft zoning code that was developed by Matrix as part of the overall contract that was agreed upon in Task Order 1. And those are currently, and this is what the executive director was talking about, is the committee, the subcommittee is already at a point where they're about to approve it, but they're restricted from approving it because the plan needs to be approved. You get it? The plan must come first before the zoning ordinance goes into effect. And so the plan needs to go first in order for this zoning ordinance to occur. And so there's already a draft that's available, and I don't know if you guys already have a copy of that as part of the documents provided? Okay.
I didn't see it.
Well, as I mentioned, we're in subcommittee right now. We're reviewing the zoning code. The board doesn't feel confident to present it to the board because we've spent the past 2 years looking at the 2.5, 3 years reviewing the Hagatna Master Plan. A copy was actually provided to the legislature during an oversight hearing in 2020. That was when we were here with Senator Kelly Marsh Titano. We gave a copy of all the matrix deliverables to the legislature. It's included in there, the draft. So, yeah, you've had a copy.
Yeah, I'll definitely go back. Yes, Director Borja?
Senator Paris, I just wanted to add something to your comment about making, minor amendments to the plan. And one of them, of course, is, the list of agencies that influence Hagatna. If you notice on page 1-3 where it says Department of Land Management, and it is, I think, I don't think it's a minor amendment, I think it's a big amendment, where it says entities within DLM that also influence land in Hagatna include the Guam Land Use Commission, the Guam Seashore Protection Commission, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, and the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission. They're not within land management presently. When the plan was first started, they were within land management, but now they're not. And the land trust, of course, is one of the largest landowner, or the landowner of one of the largest lots down there. And I'm not sure what ancestral lands influence would have, but most of the properties in the Chamorro Land Trust Commission inventory in Hagatna actually had, previous original landowners. So, ancestral lands might come in and but just to change that sentence that at the passage, or if this passes, or the time that it's presented, that Chamorro Land Trust and ancestral lands are no longer within land management. They're on their own. They stand on their own. We assist them, of course, but they have their own authority.
Okay, I appreciate that. The other thing that I want to also make sure is with this plan is that things are preserved in place. There's, you initially talked about how there were burials that were found in the area that was supposed to become the Department of Land Management. So does this document have that language that any burials found are preserved in place?
Senator, there's already a law that requires that any human remains, any remains that are considered historic in nature, have to be buried in place, or a monument set up where they're buried in place. One of the things that the HRA had looked at is, if you look at how the museum is built, the museum is built on stilts, and they purposely done that not only because of where the groundwater is at and how far it needs to go down to make sure the structure is sound in terms of earthquake, but it also to make sure they mitigate the archaeological footprint of the building, where it's not going to impact or negatively impact the area. And more than likely, any building that's going to be built in the future will also do that type of construction, where they only deal with areas where the foundations will be at, and elevate it up to meet the NFAP requirement or the flood insurance requirement, or just to make sure that it mitigates the archaeological impact on the footprint of the building itself. I hope you.
Was that, you're saying you'll preserve things, but the idea of preserving things in place? you
Yeah,
kind of said
that's
that-
already a law. That's a requirement by law. That's in Chapter 76, Title 21, under historical objects and sites. So we have to keep the SHPO requires that you designate an area that's dedicated towards the human remains that are found within that area. This is why if you go to the hotels, they have a lot of monuments dealing with our ancestors.
Yeah, I think this is a little different because we're talking about a policy change, right? Because according to what I'm hearing is that allows for the reburial, consolidation. If you find a burial that it gets consolidated in a monumental site. I think what I'm talking about is more of a policy change where if there are burials found, you preserve the burial in place versus moving it to a monument site.
No, the law is that you have to bury in place or right next to it. You cannot move it within that area. And DPR, the SHPO, will determine where that area would be at based upon the plan that's approved. So the policy is already there. Every development that goes in to do construction and they find an archaeological site, they actually have to bury in place. And when they talk about bury in place, they talk about where the construction is going to impact. So they look at the archaeologists do their own survey and they determine where that thing is at. And what I'm saying is that when we build buildings here, we need to look at how we're going to build the buildings so it minimizes any impact to any archaeological things. Hagåtña is 3,800 years old. You're bound to find bones no matter what, or archaeological digs. So one of the things that we have, that HRA needs to make sure it does, and it's covered within the plan and the design guidelines, is that you have to meet the requirements of law, and that's this portion is a regulatory part of it that we want to make sure that it happens. Again, we're trying to bring Hagåtña back in terms of restoring it with what we can, but we want to make sure we do it right. We don't go and do something that's wrong, especially to our ancestors.
The other concern I have is the borrowing of money to fund the projects. Again, the enabling statute gave a lot of powers to the board, and I would like to, proffer amendments. I haven't created an amendment yet, but, perhaps more transparency in regards to borrowing money, because in the law it states that the property can be used to secure the funding. And the last thing we want, if we renege on a payment, is to lose the property of Hagåtña, right, to a person that we're borrowing money from. I think that's a really dangerous situation.
Yeah, I totally agree, Senator. I just wanted to bring up that, that GITA has to be the one to take the lead in going off for bond or when we go get a loan. Because in order for GITA to proceed with that, the agency needs to show how it can repay that loan back, and that loan doesn't become encumbered with any other uses other than a repayment plan to the whatever it is. So even before HRE can proceed with it, GITA has to get all the facts and say, do you have the money available? Are we meeting do you have the money to go ahead and secure that loan in terms of repayment?
Thank you. Any other responses from the panel?
Yes, thank you, Senator. I think that Madam Chair, Maria, had spoken, responded this morning, and we do have an MOU with GITA to work with them as an advisor. They assisted us in procuring the contract and the funding for this plan here. So again, we're not looking to recreate the wheel. We have all these other resources that we're looking to partner up with within the government, GITA, land management, DPW, and use them as resources in moving the city forward.
Appreciate the responses. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Perez. Senator San Augustine?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just noticed, I think Joe Santos, you mentioned plan before the zoning code. Am I correct? You need the plan approved before you can address the zoning code? You mentioned we need to get the plan approved first before we go into the zoning code?
Yeah, I mentioned that the Public Law 24-110, Chapter 79, Title 21 provides that the HRA has to provide a Hagåtña restoration and redevelopment plan. Of course, the supporting documents are the atlas and the design guidelines. And then once that plan is approved, then the law requires that the board approve a zoning ordinance. Do you want me to go to the exact section of the law?
No, not required. I was just going to comment that because you're coming to this body to ask for an approval of a plan. I don't know if the board is sufficient to approve when you end up having to come back to ask for funding. You can, Asil, you can tell me all about the resources you have, but at the end of the day, if you're going to go to the bond, you're going to do anything like that, it's going to come back to this body. I would only highly recommend, I mean, I was going through the whole plan here, and there's a lot of catch-22 here, and I'm making me have reservations, but I support, in general, the plan. I'm just trying to advise you folks, is be very careful how you move forward if the plan is approved. Because at any given time, it says there, severability, if any provision of this act or application to any person or circumstance is found to be invalid or contrary to law. You can have GITA in your pocket. It don't mean anything because GITA don't have access to money. They're always going to have to come back to us and say, we need to go to the market. Will you approve? So I just want to make sure that we all understand where we're going with this. Because generally, the plan, I have no problem with it. Because this body can always go back and say, hold on. It's been in existence for 25 years, right? And it's been now, what, 5 years, 6 years? You're just trying to keep it going. And I support all your efforts you guys are doing. I have no other questions. Thank you. Or comments.
Sitius Masi, Senator San Augustine. Senator Blas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Going through the documents and everything, and quite honestly, these are a lot of the language I found in the documents or language I saw 5, 6, 10 years ago. I guess the question is, Harline, how have we advanced over the last 3 years from the last time, from the previous administration? What have we done?
Hi, sir. Thank you. So what has the Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Authority done? Well, we've completed the Hagåtña Master Plan, which was Law 24-110, passed in 1997. Nothing was done. In 2006, they started to develop a plan. It went on for a year. It wasn't completed. In 2015, we started to build on that 2006 plan, and we have a completed document in front of you. We have a portfolio of 30 projects that we want to move forward with. The issue has, and it all comes down to funding, not just the projects, but the agency. Prior to this administration, the Hagåtña Restoration Redevelopment Authority consisted of one person, our planner, Joe Santos, trying to develop our capital city. working with Matrix to develop this plan. You know, our mission is to protect and promote and preserve our capital city, which has seen very little progress made in over 75 years since it was destroyed during the war. Some progress has been made. We've seen this building has been restored. This was part of the plan. The Guam Museum was built. We're working on, we have some apps for the heritage sites. But again, prior to this administration, there was one person working here, Mr. Joe Santos. We've slowly built up. We now have an office of 3 people. We have a program coordinator. She's only been with us for 6 weeks. We've applied for 2 grants, one to fund the completion of the river feasibility study. MAP grants and TAP grants we're working on. We're trying to move forward with the Guam Land Resources building. That building was being championed by the recently deceased Ray Tapasnas, the head of GURA. So it kind of fell to the side over the past month. But we have members of our board here, Commissioner Benavente, who has been pushing us to meet with the governor and continue moving forward with that. So I think we've completed, or we've accomplished a lot in the past couple of years that we've been here. I hope that answers some of your questions. Yeah.
And thank you. Ms. Casella, please, I didn't mean to be confrontational in the thing. I just needed to get, okay, where we are with this whole process, and I appreciate that. Okay?
Thank you, sir. We are further than we've been in 25 years.
Okay.
This plan has never come before this board or before the legislature.
And you're right. I mean, you know, I guess frustration for people like me is you know, I was there from basically at the beginning, okay? And I guess for me, the conversation just, for lack of a better term, is old, but it's necessary, okay? So, again, I didn't intend it to be confrontational on it. I just wanted to know where we were at and okay, how far this. Because I'm going to reference a couple, you know, again, I was reading through this, through the documents and stuff again, and, you know, made references to interviews and studies and things that were conducted in 2005, 2015. And I was just wondering whether or not we've gone back to validate some of that information. Because what may have been gathered even as early as 2015 may not hold true today. Okay? I think one of the people that you interviewed, or that was interviewed back in 2015, is one of the members of this body today. A couple of members of this body, actually. And so, you know, I guess for me to get some comfort in this thing is just basically, yes, that was the information then. This is still valid and still true today. Okay? And, you know, some of the projects that you have within the Agania Master Plan, I hold here and dear because I was the author of some of those initiatives. And my frustration is that it hasn't been moving. I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming the whole process. I'm blaming years and years of not being able to do this, okay? It just happens, you're right. You're the first time this group has had to come in front of us, and so, you know, we're going to have to lay it on somebody, and it happens to be you, okay? So, still going to look at this a little bit more, listen to a little bit more of the conversation. Quite honestly, I'm going to need a little bit more convincing, okay? So with that, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Blas. Senator Tydegui, do you have any questions for the panel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lola, did you have a chance to look at the, what we asked last time with regards to BSP's comments?
Yes, so in regards, I did talk to Ed. So we do have language here referencing that's in the plan regarding the shoreline. So, yeah, so on page 1-111, says use the shoreline's valuable resource to its full potential. So we said one of the actions is ensure that new development projects ensure that new development protects the shoreline character and coastal environment consistent with the Guam Coastal Zone Management Program. So there's, any form of development will need to go through the federal consistency review and also align with the Guam Coastal Management Program.
Was that the only concern?
And stated in the plan.
So that was a recommendation from BSP to incorporate that?
I'm not sure, Senator. But it is here. Because I did talk to Ed and I did point out that it's language that's here in the document.
Okay.
Senator, this is Celeste Warner. I'd like to assist the director of BSP, Lola. It is exact language that BSP has asked us to incorporate on behalf of HRRA for the plan.
Celeste, can you speak up just a little bit because we could barely hear you in the hall. Could you say it again?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, sorry. I just want to just add that it is exact language from BSP that we added to the plan for their request.
Okay, thanks, Celeste. In the section of 79304 LACIA, which governs it's a chapter overseeing Hagatna restoration. There's a section there that talks about the approval, the governor's approval, and then it shall go to the legislature. Okay? It's the approval by the governor and the Guam legislature. I looked in the committee report. I haven't seen any letter from the governor approving this. Do you have a copy?
Madam Chair, on a point of information,
Please state your point of information, Vice Speaker.
the bill itself, as presented by the governor to this August body, was submitted by the governor on Bill 246 on her behalf.
Thank you very much. That's correct. The bill was introduced by the request of Imagahagan Guahan. Sujus Masi, Vice Speaker.
There's nothing in law that requires a letter of approval or anything like that. Lacia, nothing?
I don't have a letter on me, but I did receive notice that the governor had approved it and she would be submitting it in bill form to the legislature on January 28th.
I'm just following what the law says here that created the Hagatna restoration and the proving of a plan. And that leads me to the second issue I'm having here, because you have 8 components in this plan at the very beginning, but yet only 3 of them, the MAT Atlas, the master land, and the design guidelines, are only in here. But all the other 5 have not been approved. Now, I know this is a living document that everyone keeps talking about, living document, but here's the thing. If you look at 79304 of the law that oversees Hagatna restoration, it says here that the authority shall submit the plan to the governor, who, if he approves the same, shall transmit the plan to the Guam legislature in the form of a bill. Well, we're sitting here today with a plan with only 3 components addressed. The other 5, who's going to approve that? I mean, according to the law, it only says a plan, not several plans. So how are we going to address that again?
Senator, we only submitted the plan because that's what's required by law.
Yeah, but what happens to the other 5 components in your plan that you actually recognized?
I believe, I don't have the law in front of me, but it does give us the authority to change the zoning code with a public hearing.
Okay, why don't I take you to the
Senator, can I clarify what you're talking about?
Go to the plan, the master plan 1-1, page 1-1.
Yeah.
Okay, and you'll see the 8 components, right? And right now, the only thing that we have in this plan is the map atlas, the master plan and design guideline. So I'm wondering how we pass this with these particular components, how are we going to pass the next 5 components if the law 79304 says that a plan will be transmitted to the governor for approval by the legislature? That means the other 8 of the other 5 components have to come to the legislature and also pass as another plan. But it doesn't say multiple plans, it says 1 plan. And my concern is we haven't addressed those 8 other components. Are you there, Joe, on the page? Go to 1-1 of the master plan.
Okay, Senator, so one of the components is the implementation plan, which is our portfolio of 30 projects. The board, this was actually something that I believe that BSP had brought up as well, and it is not feasible for us to present 30 projects to the legislature for funding when we don't know which projects are going to, take place, the priority of them. So that's why we didn't submit the implementation plan. The Hagatna River Flood Protection Study, that's not included in the law. That's a part of this, and we are working on that. The alternative plans is actually incorporated into the Hagatna Master Plan. And it's in the appendix. Right?
But you clearly said during the public hearing there were only 3 that you were addressing in this plan. So now you're saying alternative plans were incorporated?
Trying to look from here. So Celeste, if you're...
Yes. So Senator, per the law, and I have the bill up here, the HRRA is required to submit the plan, but none of the regulatory components are to be part of the plan that is to go to the legislature. Through the way, I'm not an attorney, so I'm just going to state how I'm
Celeste, can you
interpreting
speak
it.
up? I'm sorry. Can you come closer? Yeah, and speak up louder because it's really hard to hear you.
I am so sorry, and I'm going to get close, so you're probably just going to see my forehead. But I just want to state that I'm not an attorney, so this is my interpretation of the law, and I'm looking at it many, many times, and I have it in front of me today, that HRRA is to submit the plan, but not the regulatory components of the plan. And so the regulatory components are that zoning ordinance, and those other components, the financing component is a regulatory implementation component, and the implementation plan. So I just wanted to, hopefully that helps to define why you only have 3 components of the overall project that we did. Is per the law, they are only required to submit the plan itself. Well, I have the speaker. I'd like to just add, this is going to answer a question from one of the other senators. In regards to the zoning ordinance, if this plan is approved by the legislature, by all of you, an intergovernmental agreement should be immediately signed, and the existing zoning that currently exists through DLM should be the zoning that is legal until the board, HRRA board, adopts the new zoning ordinance. And that new zoning ordinance should not be adopted until it goes through a thorough and comprehensive public process. So public meetings and then the public hearing process. So hopefully that helps clarify some of the other questions.
Lacia, what some of the projects will not be allowed in Hagåtña?
I'm sorry, can you repeat? I didn't hear the last part. What are some of the projects that are not
Going to be allowed, yeah.
not be allowed in Hagåtña?
Yeah.
You mean
Or
from
not projects or, projects or businesses will not be allowed.
what types of projects will not be? You mean it as far as zoning, like heavy manufacturing, industrial? Those are the cemeteries.
I didn't hear Joe. He was talking about.
Yeah,
Industrial, manufacturing, cemeteries, those type of projects will not be allowed in Hagåtña.
And that's incorporated in the plan.
That's already, I believe, the current zoning code.
Yeah, I know, but that's not going to. No, there's no.
Those are what we're trying to enforce. We're actually trying to expand the zoning code.
Yeah, those are the activities, Senator, that are not are restricted from being a part of the city of Hagåtña. As you well know, the municipality of Hagåtña is actually small. It's smaller than UMATAC, smaller than any other jurisdiction. And so one of the things we want to do is capitalize and put in, because we're building HRA is helping build a city. And in order to build that city, we have to make sure that the uses that are going to be applicable within the city of Hagåtña are compatible and meet the requirements of what a city would call for. So those are the types of uses that won't be allowed or projects that won't be allowed in Hagåtña should the master plan be passed.
Lacio, you used the 2010 census instead of the 2020 in this plan?
I believe that is correct. Yes, that.
So why didn't you use the 2020?
Can I speak to that? It wasn't available yet when this plan was being done. As you well know, the 2020 census just happened like how many years ago? And it wasn't, a lot of the information was not released to the public. So we didn't have the information available for us to incorporate within the plan itself. But if you look at the actual growth of Hagåtña, you're going to look that it's just the same, almost the same type of population that was in 2010 is the same type of population that's in 2020.
Joe, can you explain with Department of Land Management, are you familiar that Hagåtña Restoration has the authority to zone any properties in Hagåtña in their current law?
That's, I believe, in their enabling legislation.
It gives them that authority to do so, right? Because earlier when we spoke, you thought that everything had to go to land management first to get rezoned, but in reality, the law right now states that Hagåtña Restoration has all they have to have is a public hearing, and they can change the law.
Yeah, it's kind of like, legislative. It's kind of like legislative zoning.
I see. I just wanted to clarify that for the record. Okay, thank you. My time is up.
Thank you very much, Senator Titlegy. Speaker Therese, you're recognized. Speaker Terlahi.
Yes, thank you. First, Mr. Santos, can you point out the authority that you said requires that the design guidelines and the map atlas be part of this plan?
Senator, are you talking about within the law or?
Yes.
Okay, when you do a plan, you need documentation as to why that land use plan was being done. What's being submitted in is an actual land use plan saying this is how we came up with these policies. So in order to do that, one of the things we needed to make sure we have available within the plan is, of course, a map atlas or existing conditions so that we can develop future land uses. And this is why this is actually a document as a part of the master plan itself. The reason why it wasn't separated is because when we went out for bid with to go out and get it, part of the scope of work is to make sure we separate out the existing conditions, so that became kind of like a separate document of the plan itself, but supports it. The second part of the design guidelines, if you look at the law that created the HRA to do the plan itself, it says we need to keep a sense of place, culture, and everything. And so part of that is making sure that a design guideline is developed to meet that requirement of law. And so this is why it's important that this design guideline become a part of the plan itself, and really it's a supporting document to the master plan itself.
All right. I'm asking because you said earlier that they were required by statute. But you're explaining to us now that they're not actually required anywhere in here, but they are supporting, and that was a decision of the HRRA, that these would be supporting documents. Is there any reason, Lacia, Ms. Castillo, the rector, that this map atlas, when I reviewed it, it looks like it's an existing, it shows the existing uses and zones of Fagotña right now. Everything that's here, it's our atlas of existing. Why do you need legislative approval of that? What is going to change if the legislature approves that document?
Well, Madam Speaker, it creates the baseline so that we know moving forward where specific monuments are, where the streets are, what the street names are, where the waterways are.
Are there things in there then that need legislative approval? Or are these really literally existing everything, waterways, existing historic properties? It looked to me like these are all existing, and I'm curious why you need legislative approval of this atlas. It's an atlas of Fagotña. It's great. I like it. I can see why you needed it in order to create a plan, but I can't see why we need legislative approval of it. That's one. Second, the same thing with the design guidelines. So the design guidelines, I just want to clarify your statement earlier, and I'm going to ask all of you to be very careful with the words you use, because my concern is we are all here trying to bring the public along, right, with a huge thing. I think everyone needs to understand. It looks to us, and I think you have confirmed today, if we approve this plan, we are done. The legislature has no more role in this because we have delegated the power of eminent domain over to HRRA. That's huge. And we would, I thought, by this plan, know exactly which properties you're planning to condemn, right? Before we say yes on the plan. Second, we are approving, if we approve this plan, that you go forward, as you've described, with rezoning properties. And maybe it's for the benefit, so that's great. But we are saying yes without knowing exactly what rezoning you're looking at, because it's not included in these documents. You said they've been included in other documents, but that doesn't mean that's part of what we're approving today, right? We're not approving that zoning plan that you're describing. We're approving your authority to go forward and rezone. And I hope you understand from our perspective, all we need to do is, of course, we should very consciously approve this, knowing everything we can know, and we need to bring the public along. And the public should know exactly that that's what's going on. They're going to look to us later. Why did you approve that now my property is next to this or that or whatever? Now I can't build this on my property. And we're going to have to explain that. And I don't think we as a legislature should say, we had no idea what they would come up with. We should have had an idea. And maybe you disagree with that, but that's just me. I feel like it's a big thing, And then I want you to clarify this. The statute says the legislature has one duty, and that is to approve, disapprove, or amend the Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Plan. But that HRRA plan is not exactly the Hagåtña Master Plan. Those are two different plans, I'm understanding from the semantics here. So in our approval of a Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Plan, you're actually asking us to approve the Hagåtña Master Land Use Plan. It's a land use plan, right? And so I discussed that earlier. But, you know, as one of my colleagues stated, there were other parts of the Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Plan that I think we paid for. And so when you gave us the quote of the $900,000, was that for the land use plan and all these other components, as he described or someone described, went out on different RFPs? Are those also included in the $900,000?
So you have multiple questions, Speaker. I'm trying to. So regarding your question about the awareness of the residents of Hagåtña and this plan, there's an entire chapter on what we're proposing for land use. There's
right. The land
so
use plan.
I have to say I disagree with you when you say we're not making the public aware of what we plan to do with the land, because there's an entire chapter dedicated to what the type of land use should be. We submitted to the legislature 2 years ago all the matrix deliverables, including the draft zoning code, all the charrettes, everything is in your possession for the past 3 years. We've, in full compliance with the law, in making people aware of what we're doing with our monthly meetings, Facebook.
All right.
Page.
Is this plan the same as the plan that was submitted years ago? There's been no changes? After you got input from the public agencies, there were no changes made at all?
No, we incorporated those changes.
All right, so this is a different plan than what was submitted back then, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
This is a different plan than what was submitted years ago.
This was the plan that was developed from the 2006 plan and when we started in 2015.
Right.
Incorporating all the comments from the charrettes and the open houses.
Yes, and then as you're describing, it was submitted to the legislature, to the governor, but it was not submitted to the legislature because she sent you back to get input from the agencies. And so I'm asking, you know, those other drafts that we saw, are these the same documents? Because you keep referring us back to these old documents that were not transmitted to us this time. And so I want to be precise on this. We are not approving any zoning plan because that was not transmitted as part of this Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Plan. So I don't think it's fair of you to say that we had knowledge of the zoning that you guys intend to do. No. If you intend that and you already have it planned, then it should be part of this if you want to say that. Otherwise, it's not part. We're delegating that out if we approve this plan. We're washing our hands of it. That's very clear to me.
Madam Chair, or Madam Speaker, we are not asking the legislature to approve a zoning code.
Right, that's my point. You're not asking us to approve the zoning plan. You're not asking us to approve any of the other parts of this plan that the government paid for. I don't know, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but if you could just answer my question. Were the costs of these other components part of the $900,000 quote that you told the senator that that's the cost of the Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Plan?
Yes, Senator. And at a public hearing in this legislature, when Matrix was present, Senator Kelly Marsh Teichner requested all of the Matrix deliverables, including all the drafts, the draft zoning code, the draft governance, and that was handed over to the legislature. So you've had copies of this for 3 years.
We have copies of the drafts, I admit, yes. Those were drafts at the time. So is the answer yes to my question of the $900,000 that was set for all of these deliverables? Because why did he say there was a separate RFP for the zoning plan, the map atlas, that there were different RFPs? So what is the total?
I don't know what Joe was talking about. Celeste from Matrix, she's on the line.
What's the
I think
total? No, I'm asking HRRA. What is the total that we have paid to Matrix for all of these different components?
It was a little over $900,000, I believe.
All right. And then, so the zoning code and the governance plan that were submitted as drafts are not attached today to the documents that we are approving, and we are thus saying that we are approving the plan as required by statute, even though they don't have these components in front of us. We're not approving those components, but we are delegating that authority to HRRA.
That's not correct. We're not changing the zoning code, and we're not changing the
But
governance.
you told us earlier that that is your authority, and it is your authority under the statute, right? And that you will do that with a public hearing, you told us.
I said we have a subcommittee who is reviewing the zoning code, what needs to be done, and the governance. And we will have a report to submit to this legislature and to the governor on what the recommendations are moving forward.
Right, but that doesn't mean that we have any other authority to go in and approve those. You can submit
Correct.
recommendations to us. You've already said you have the authority to rezone, to eminent domain, to use the land taxes or the improvement taxes for the city of Agatna and go out for bond. All of that's very, very clear. And I'm not, objecting to that, but I'm just saying that, those are the things that we are doing by approving the plan today without the rest of the components. Do we have a list of something very practical? So yes, you've got this, it's called the land use plan, and it's got shades of colors, and it's supposed to tell the landowners, according to what you're describing, this document should tell all landowners what is intended for their properties. But I don't see lot numbers on this map. I just see areas, and so maybe they can tell, I'm not sure. But when the Land Use Commission approves rezoning or variances, they are mandated to give notice to adjacent landowners. And so I know, I was there for several of those hearings. I wanted to see how the turnout was. And yeah, just to see whether I thought that all the landowners were really aware, were engaged. And some of them were, but I think it should be fair to say some of them were not. So I was wondering if there's any list that shows any by lot numbers what each landowner can expect, which part of the land use plan they would be under, which part of the new draft rezoning, how that would affect their particular property. And, maybe you've said we're going to expand the uses of the current uses of property, so maybe there would be no objection to that, except that, I don't know, I just feel like it would be more practical for them to review it if they knew which was their properties, right? And then my other question, because my time is up, I'm not going to be able to pursue these, but again, we're back to the floodplain, and I want to note, this plan then is based on no changes to the existing floodplain, right? Because we have no flood plan, no way to mitigate the floods, so we are requiring, this plan has been built on existing flood plain, right?
Correct, ma'am, but there is
not a mitigated one, not a plan, like these are all contingent on if we did this, if we did that, or are they contingent?
There is a sentence in the plan, I'm sorry, there's 390 pages, that says this plan is effective until the river feasibility study is completed and the floodplain is mitigated. And I will try to look for that. I can't.
Okay, yeah. well,
But to
that's-
answer your other question.
That's very important. And what about affordable housing? Because when you read the statute, that's
Thank
front
you,
and center,
Speaker.
very prominent, affordable housing. And I know that's a goal in here,
Yes, it's not.
but it's not outlined.
Thank you,
As-
Speaker. Your time is up. We'll allow the panel to answer.
Thank you. How the panel will be able to, how HRA will be able to affect the cost of rental units. How exactly are they going to do that?
Okay, so first question, you asked about the map atlas and why is it important that we incorporate this? Because the map atlas that shows existing land use, and if you look at it, you can see the map that shows all the properties and what their different landowners have, and compare it to what we are proposing. These documents are online. They've been online for several years.
What document is that?
This is the map atlas that you're,
Oh, the map atlas?
on
Yes.
page 9, it shows the existing land use. So you can compare that with what we are.
Yeah, I'm asking if you had a document that did that comparison.
We do, these two documents. The map atlas shows existing conditions, the baseline, and you can compare that to the proposed land use,
Are there lot numbers on that map?
which is up on page 350, I'm sorry.
Do you
On
see
the
lot
existing?
numbers?
9. Oh, no, it's just by street
There are
numbers.
none, yeah.
Yeah. The next question that you had was, I'm sorry, affordable housing. This is something that we can address within the zoning code, changing the zoning code to create, expanding the current zoning code to mix from just retail or residential to mixed-use retail, and then working with developers, requiring that, and this is just a proposal, in some cities, in developments, they require developers to have a certain percentage of their, let's say they build 100 apartments, 20% of that has to be available to residents in a certain income bracket. That's how we will address the affordable housing, is by changing the zoning code. This will be addressed in the zoning code.
That's why I'm asking if the landowners are really aware of what they will be required to do under that new zoning code.
I'm sorry, I can't remember the other questions. Okay.
Thank you very much. Senator Dueñas, do you have any questions?
This is Madam Chair, and yeah, I continue to concur with the retiring speaker, that I think we're in a more questions and answers zone again here, just from my personal perspective. I wanted to kind of use this as an example again, and I'm glad the speaker honed in on this, because going back, it's no secret that Matrix has been contracted for a number of different projects, primarily Build Up 1, leading into Build Up 2. And the primary duty and responsibility, because I was part of it, was to do all of these public hearings and go out to the community in order to gain information, put together information to understand impacts, and to get to that point. This process is very duplicative of that. What I will illustrate is what the speaker just discussed in terms of the map atlas and the overlay zonings with no lot numbers. The indication here on 1.6, community involvement and public participation, it's businesses and landowners, institutions, development and projects, real estate markets, economic development and tourism, public works projects, historic and cultural, seafaring culture of Guam. When you go to the table where the individuals, the 35, are interviewed, it's predominantly government organizations and their boards and commissions and businesses. Very few individual landowners here in terms of what the table gives us. So what I'm seeing, and I guess the concern that I continue to express, much like the speaker, is that you're right, Lacia, that it was Joe Santos and the contract that he administered to get to where we were, because that was produced in 2015. And as Matrix has indicated, the Palazzo was the prime of that, because it was bringing government entities back to Agana using rental to be able to facilitate debt service if that plan were to go through, which is still very premature. So my indication here is that that plan, and then whatever else was put in, and the final deliverables that came forward, as you said, in the previous legislature, still have to be reviewed or are contained in this plan now, where the way I see it now, and I'm not taking away from what you said, but you have yourself and your 3 employees now, is that Agana Restoration Authority, as described and said by Matrix, all of the numerous reference to the city doing the work here is now the clearinghouse, if you will, of government projects, entities, and the like. And I'm concerned about that at this point. I'm not concerned about the fulfillment of the product coming forward and what necessarily was put forward, but I'm not convinced of the mechanics of it at this point. So I guess as I go forward, we'll continue to review and see what happens during the amendment portion and what more additional review comes forward. But I guess I'll use one more example with Mr. Joe Bora, DLM. The fractional lot issue, which also was an impediment, by the way, to the plan when we were going forward to build the land building. We had fractional lots, I think Joe worked on that we had to consolidate with a private landowner in order to meet setbacks and other requirements. I believe we entered into a purchase agreement in order to satisfy that requirement with the landowner. So that was also one issue. But I wanted to kind of finish with this one. In terms of the current law on the lot and block system, that resolves the fractional lot as per law, right? Or would that be a concept incorporated in? Because Hagatnia is the notorious location of fractional lots.
And that still exists today, Senator. There's still fractional lot issues. The city of Agana, within the municipality, comprises of 30 city blocks. And within those blocks are about 20 to 24 lots. And then within those new lots, new Agana lots, there are still some fractional lot issues. As you correctly pointed out, in the development of the lot for the land resources building, we had to relocate some private landowners. We were very fortunate to be able to do that so that we could get the smaller government lots and consolidate it into one big lot. And in one of those transactions in the map, as you pointed out, there was a commitment to purchase one lot, or for a private landowner to purchase one lot. We had exchanged the property. That one hasn't gone through yet. That sale that the landowner wanted in order to relocate his property. But for that block 24, that's basically settled. There were a couple of lots in there that belonged to a family that somehow was not condemned under the original land takings by the federal government. But that one has been resolved also. More or less, the fractional lot issue is down towards Anigua, right around behind actually the Kentucky Fried Chicken area. That still has fractional lot issues. I don't really know of any other block that has fractional lot issues other than that one. There is one lot in front of Main Street Bakery that's being used as a parking lot. That particular lot is, it's not really a fractional lot, but it wasn't condemned, and we couldn't find any condemnation records for that. And that lot still, I believe, remains in the private landowner.
So, Mr. Bora, is that resolved now then through litigation, or is it resolved by the fact that the lot and block system is the law of the land at this point?
It's not resolved as long as you don't condemn it, because it still belongs to the private landowner. We couldn't find any taking records, any judicial condemnation or negotiated sale for that particular lot.
In review of this plan, do you think the authority will now retain the ability to condemn?
If that's what the law says, that they have the authority to condemn, they could possibly condemn.
As I stated earlier, all of the projects that we have we've identified government land. The authority has no intention to condemn any private lands for any of the projects.
Yeah, so intentions are great, but that's why we're questioning the power. And that's why we're questioning the details. And when we come to this position where we're in session to have to make this final decision, that's why the questions are asked before. Maybe just a little bit more time through a couple more roundtables or one more roundtable to get some key factors, because we're in a place now, I just want to be straight with you guys, we're in a place now where we're forced with this process of approving, amending, or rejecting. And we may not be rejecting because we don't like 90% of the plan, but we may reject if we don't like 10% of the plan as we go through it some more. And that's where we are.
Well, we're happy to hear your amendments for those 10%, Senator.
I realize that, but I don't know that unless we recess for a couple more weeks for most of us to go through this some more, that we're here in the Committee of the Whole on a bill when we could have been in another hearing. So I don't know. I mean, that's up to the body. But that's why the questions exist, and that's why, I don't even know that I would, Senator, fairness, Senator Perez has mentioned a couple of amendments that I'd like to review and consider, certainly. But what I'm saying is I don't even know that you would like us making amendments that you might not know about because you're not here. And we wouldn't be talking about those amendments in terms of a roundtable proposed for when we heard the bill. That's my point. So I don't know. I'm just saying that's up to the body. But it's not going to be for a lack of your effort, but it might be for a lack of complete understanding. And I just want to put that on the record. Sijus Masi, Madam Chair.
Sijus Masi, Senator Dueñas. Senator Ada.
I don't have any questions in this round, ma'am.
Thank you, Senator Ada. Senator Brown.
I do have a question with regards to the infrastructure that's relayed here with regards to water in particular. And right now, nothing listed with regards to GWA's capability of upgrading water capacity in Hagåtña. The hope is if this were to be in place that we're going to have additional development here, certainly in compliance with the design of the master plan. But I wanted to inquire, were you aware that the requests have been made to the National Park Service by GWA to reactivate the Asen Spring and look at it as a water source for Hagåtña, for Asen, Maina, as well as the village of Pidi?
Senator, we would have to engage with GWA about that.
I bring it up just because the process is happening now. I believe that they're only giving us in general, the community, up until the end of this month to provide commentary with regards to the request of the National Park Service to reactivate the Asen Spring. So I don't know if you guys have engaged in that. If not, perhaps if you could look into that process, I can forward you the link, just so that you guys are not lost in that, because certainly there would definitely be a need, just in terms of future growth and development, to ensure that's additional water capacity. But as they evaluate, and they're going through that evaluation process, I believe they're like on the 6th of, there's a few more stages. I think they're in step 9 of a 16-step process to determine what their decision is going to be with regards to the Asen Spring. So I don't know if you're aware of that, so I'm inquiring.
We are not aware of that, but we will look into it, Senator.
And is that any dialogue you guys have had also, in the development of these plans before us with the other utilities, with Waterworks, with Guam Power, on their ability and capacity to accommodate any desired growth here in Hagåtña?
We have engaged with the other utilities agencies. They've all submitted their comments to them, and we have worked with them to align our plans with their plans.
And is it favorable? What is the fee? I mean, we understand, GPA is going to be building their new Northern District plan. Will that be able to accommodate the intended? I don't know what their feedback is to you. Perhaps you can elaborate on what that is, just so we know.
I can, I have copies of their submissions to us I can present to you, if that's feasible.
It would be good just for reference, or even just for the dialogue here, just so the public will know that, that opportunity is there for that intended growth.
When we submitted the copies of the plans, included were all the agency comments on the USB drive. We submitted 15 copies to all the senators on January 28th, and it includes all the comments from all the agencies, including GPA, GWA.
Can you just give us a short summary, because this is, the public is not probably going to be sitting reading that. Do you have any preliminary feedback for both those utilities, just to give us an idea?
As far as GWA, when we met with them, I remember during the pandemic, they submitted their comments in writing, and then we met with them to just discuss it over Zoom. And for the most part, the main concern that they raised was the relocation of the wastewater plant, which was referenced as a potential option. And we, we appreciated their concerns, and so we removed any references to relocating and just focus on basically, what's the term they use? Basically just making improvements to the current wastewater facilities so that we can accomplish the mutual objectives. So that was the main point of concern, but they didn't indicate that it would be a problem to support the growing capacity needs. And of course, that's something that they were aware of as they reviewed the plan.
Well, it may not be a bad idea, as I mentioned, to get in contact with them now, just because of this ongoing process with the National Park Service to look at it. I mean, of course, if there's an alternate water source, I mean, that's a very good thing. It'd just be good to get engaged with that. And I assume for power, they were favorable with their new facility that they're constructing, that they could accommodate the additional growth requests here for Hagåtña in terms of, or concurrence with the plan that's being brought forth?
I don't recall any concern that was raised specifically by GPA.
Again, I appreciate it. I just think it's an important component. We can have all the plans in the world, but the infrastructure is not there to support it there, then we have a problem, right?
Totally agree.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your response to my inquiry.
Masi, Senator Brown.
Madam Chair, am I the last senator for today?
You are the last senator for the round of questions. So this is the last round of questions. If you have any for the panel, before we begin the comments and amendments round.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And before I ask let me go ahead and ask my last couple of questions is directed to anyone in the panel that can answer this. Does HRRA have any plans on making any changes? Or what changes are they planning on making as it relates to zoning? Madam Chair, any plans on the table right now, working with any of the agencies?
As I mentioned before, Madam Vice Speaker, there are no changes to the existing zoning code with the submission of this plan. The authority has created a subcommittee to study changes to the zoning code and how we should adapt that to the land use plan within their powers as outlined in the law. But as far as overall, we're looking to expand the zoning code to accommodate more uses in Hagåtña as a result of feedback taken from the landowners and the residents of Hagåtña. When we had our open houses, our charrettes, this is all the response to the people expanding the zoning code.
Thank you very much, Director Casil. I just want to say that this plan, any plan, is a plan to start a vision to move forward on what we see where Hagatna, our capital city, should be today. And I want to say, I see that the plan as set before us is self-explanatory, and one of the concerns I had in the beginning was maybe just making sure that I had concerns regarding the rising sea levels, but I believe in my heart that the plan should be adopted first, and we can't probably maybe look into what is happening around our area as it relates to the rising sea levels, but making sure I know that it was noted, and I think earlier you guys talked about it, and maybe somebody could add to that if there is any provisions in this plan that will support the protection of our area, the Hagatna area, as it relates to the rising sea level. I think BSP,
Yes.
did you have?
Oh.
Or anybody, I'm sorry.
I'll just start and BSP can. So, Madam Vice Chair, there's an entire chapter on sustainability. I believe it's chapter 7. And there are several policies and goals that address the rising sea level. And yes, Chapter 7, Sustainability, lays out 7 goals and 45 policies that address specifically sea level rise, water conservation, and quality and energy conservation and alternatives. 14 of these policies specifically address climate change, pages 93 to 98. So we do address this issue.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Director. Madam Chair, I just want to thank the panel for being here. I know that when this authority was created back in the 24th Guam Legislature, they had very, very strong convictions or very big ideas on how they wanted to move forward in advocating and protecting and preserving and just highlighting our capital city of our island of Guam. And I always said it was probably one of the most powerful authorities within the government of Guam. And in that effort, wanting to see, I know that being a board member in the past for the Hagatna Redevelopment Authority through the nonprofit side when we were very active during, I want to say in the late 1990s with David Hanley and those guys. We even got grants, Madam Chair, 1.2, if I'm not mistaken, or 1.7 for the 17 historic sites and information that was provided as a way to start the revitalization for this Hagatna restoration. And I want to say that, as noted earlier by BSP, that yes, this is a living, breathing document that will continue. And as in every legislation that is before us, one legislature doesn't bound the other legislature. We can always amend, repeal, reenact, and make changes as necessary to make a legislation or law become better. And this is the stage that we're at. And based on the timelines that we have to move forward on, this plan is needed in order for us to move forward. And in those efforts, as committed, based on the letter that was submitted from the administration on January 28th, as you noted, and it was with the submission of this bill this is something that, this is the closest we've come since the last 2 previous administrations have been able to work on. This is the closest, and we're at here. And like I said, a plan is only a plan, and it's till you implement the plan and start working on the intricacies of what is going to, like when you build a house, you need a plan in order for you to construct the building or the facility. And then what you put into that is when all the changes can be made or not made. So I want to say, Madam Chair, I know my time is up, but thank you to the commissioners, and thank you to our our agencies, our government agencies that are here and will continue to be here to follow this process along and to make sure that all the rules and regulations, as the government is obligated to do, that they are adhered to and intact. So thank you, Madam Chair. So, and at this time, Madam Chair, I think it's already 4:25. I'd ask that maybe we recess until tomorrow at 10 and excuse the panel and make sure that our colleagues, if they have any amendments, that they have them ready for tomorrow's session, Madam Chair.
Mr. Masi, Vice Speaker, we'd like to thank the panel for joining us today. Thank you for your time, for answering all of our questions. You are excused, and we are in recess until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Please prepare your amendments.